Well, hello, and welcome to another edition of Break Time Off the Shelf. You have Josh Ginsburg, CEO of Break Time here.
And Brad Godwin, EVP of CPG and Retail Partnerships here at Break Time.
And Ashley Keller, I am the team lead for Omni in the US for Vestacy.
Awesome. We are so happy to have Ashley, one of our favorite people in the business, on the show here today with an amazing story and all sorts of cool stuff to talk about. But you just mentioned kind of Vestacy, Ashley, which I'm sure many people have no idea what that means and what you're talking about.
No one
people
knows.
look at your LinkedIn and follow you. Reckitt is the company you most recently people would recognize the brand on. But like, why don't we start there if you don't mind? Just tell us a little bit about kind of your journey as of late and what's Vestacy all about.
Yeah, so I rejoined Reckitt proper in April of last year. I'm leading trade and retail management, and knowing that we were splitting off into Vestacy. So Vestacy is a standalone brand of about 12 to 13 the home care brands that originally were from Reckitt. And then we're just recently bought probably 3 weeks ago to become our own standalone company. So really exciting stuff.
So going from like multinational billion-dollar company with a broad portfolio to almost like a startup environment within, well-known brands, but like standing up something new,
Completely.
So
Completely new.
how has that of, your time throughout your career, you've worked for lots of different large scale companies, which has its, I would call it distinct advantages and some like disadvantages probably too, when they're really big. But like for you specifically, you went into this knowing like, hey, this is about to become fun, but probably kind of difficult and tricky and fast paced and a lot of unknowns from like a traditional Reckitt Benckiser point of view. How's that been? Like, can you help us better understand like, hey, it takes a unique person, I think, that says, hey, sign me up for that. I'm all about it. I want to go help create, build, scale, but would love to hear a little bit more about that.
I do want to call out too, before we totally jump in, sorry, Brad, actually, that this podcast, all the opinions you hear are going to be our own personal opinions today. And so while we all work and represent different companies, the opinions and the things you're going to hear are just ours personally. So I just want to set the stage on that before you tell us about all the amazing things happening, Ashley, in the world.
Thanks for the disclaimer, Josh. The legal throw in there. So to your point, I've worked for massive organizations, small organizations, but this was one, yes, I committed to the crazy, knowing it was going to be a little bit crazy. But I think, after 26 plus years in CPG, this was something that I saw as an opportunity that not many people get. I've been in organizations where you're like, can we just scrap all the brands and start over? Well, that's not going to happen. So having the opportunity to come to this place where these brands that are well known have been around for 50 plus years just haven't had any love. They've been outshadowed by the Finishes and the Lysols and the Mucinexes of the world within Reckitt. And so, I came knowing it was going to be a little bumpy. It has been. But the cool thing about it, too, is that it's a pretty lateral organization. So your voice matters and your opinion matters. And that's what really inspired me and got me excited. It wasn't returning to Reckitt. It was returning to something or starting something fresh with all the knowledge that I've gained over all the different positions and within the different companies I've worked with. And then giving these brands a little bit of love. And it's been interesting. And we've had some bumps along the way, but I'm just adding more tools to my tool belt of things that I'm learning of, what are oversights and things that we could do differently.
Yeah, it's interesting. And I remember us having coffee at one point talking about this. And I think something that has been in the wake of everything you've ever done is this like kind of curiosity. I feel like that's a characteristic that when I think of Ashley, I think of curious. Was that just like innately something that you've always had, like even as a kid and growing up, as early in your career, or is that something that has kind of developed over time?
Yeah, that's a great question. I would say it's within me. Take you back to my childhood a little bit. Growing up when I grew up, especially in a small rural town, I remember taking ballet lessons. And my mom said I came home. I don't remember this comment, obviously, but I came home. And at the time, females especially, you could be a secretary, a teacher, a nurse. And we were talking about it in class. And she said that I came home and she said, well, what did you say you wanted to be? I was like, I just want to be me. And I think it's always kind of been what's true and what's driven me is who am I? And so I think the curiosity came with that of, okay, now I know who this part of me is. What else can I do? What else can I learn? And how do I keep evolving who I am or what I do or what my title is or what my position is? And I think that's what has continued to drive me, the past 25 years, 26 years that I've been doing all this.
Really
Of
cool.
that. I mean, authenticity is kind of what I'm hearing, and that's definitely a word I would use in my top 3 to describe you, Ashley, for sure, as authentic. You are most certainly, who you say you are and what you are. I love that. That makes you kind of think a little bit of other things that I think like define you from my experience, working with you over the years. And a couple of those would be like a problem solver for sure with everything thrown at you. I think people in work as well as in your personal life bring you problems and you're just a problem solver. The other thing I would say is like you are a doer, like you have something on your mind and you're going to find a way to go get it done. I think those are 2 skills and things that I'm sure a lot of people listening in their organizations, whether they're big or small, are constantly challenged with, like, how do I solve big, complex problems being thrown at me? And if I have a really cool idea in a large or a very small org, how do I get that from start to finish and ensure that it happens, it can get done the way that I envision it? Would you mind, talking through with kind of those components and how you think you've been able to build a mindset to accomplish those?
Yeah. And first, thank you. I think that's a huge compliment. I would call myself a fixer and a doer, almost to a fault sometimes. I don't like being told no. And so while I may not be defiant, I like to find a way to get to the yes. And I think, a lot of that is you have to bring in the people who are the experts. You can't be the expert at everything, right? So it's really building those connections, whether it's within your organization or externally. I mean, I bring you guys into things all the time of let's brainstorm this. It may not even have anything relative to you or your business, but bringing in the people who are the experts that you can lean on and get different opinions because you can't know everything. But if you have a mindset of I'm going to go achieve this, how do I do it? And it's not looking at it as a mountain. It's how do you break it all apart and then build it back up and fix it. And I remember one specific project that I was during, the one wave of everybody being environmentally conscious and wanting to do things differently, specifically with Walmart or on Corrugate. And I went to my boss and I said, this really bothers me. I think we need to figure out how to cut out some of this Corrugate and these displays we're doing. He's like, oh, don't waste your time. We've done it before. It fell flat. I'm like, we'll see. So I did it and I kind of did it on the side. I obviously did the job that I was tasked to do and wasn't being defiant, but I ended up doing the project, winning a massive award from a third-party company and getting a high five from a Walmart merchant in a meeting for the savings that I accomplished within the reduction of Corrugate. So I think it's about, the curiosity and the team building and the trusting of other people to know that they have your best interest in heart and are along for the journey.
Yeah, I can attest to being in several rooms throughout the years that you have been in leadership roles. And I think that's a characteristic of great leaders is they surround themselves with high performing people.
Yeah.
And when I look at some of the teams that you have developed and built, I would say they're best in class.
Yes.
And I'm not saying that just because you're on here. I think the market would represent
Sure.
that. So yes, that's absolutely the case. And, I think along those lines, especially in the world of retail, and it's 2026 where you've got technology, you've got AI, you've got, the geopolitical dynamics and tariffs and everything else that you can't be an island now. You really need to lean on people that have expertise and also have the humility, right? Because I think that's something to go, yeah, I lean on people, but that would be another, I think, characteristic that I would say has followed you in a lot of the roles in which you've been in and probably will continue to at Vestacy is this idea of, I know what I know, but I also have the humility to know I know what I don't know too.
Right.
I think in this world, sometimes that's a rare a rare thing to come across. With that, as you've come into Vestacy, has there been any people or, maybe even any coworkers or folks along this journey that you're like, wow, they have been really helpful? I think that's something that I've started to really try to practice, is gratitude of like, man, if it wasn't for, and maybe it's not just at Vestacy, maybe along your career, that said, this person or people really saw something in me or poured into me or came alongside me. Would love to hear of, like, we know Ashley for who Ashley is, but we are also are like the summation of the people who have poured into us and come alongside us throughout our careers. And so do you have any stories or kind of things along that line?
Yeah, I think there are about 4 or 5 individuals, I would say, from a business perspective, starting back at age of 21. JB Hunt, I was a truck broker, and surrounded by a world of men. And I was told from the very beginning, don't quieten your voice, don't lose who you are, don't let anyone look down on you.
Wow.
And, from there, I've grown, going into then, huge CPGs like J&J. There were probably 3 more mentors that stand out to me of, some kind of similar things of don't apologize if it's not something that you did. Don't change who you are. And remember, at the end of the day, we're moving widgets. So how do you move a widget, but keep your balance, not only with yourself and morality, but just how do you keep that balance within life?
Mm-hmm.
But I would say the biggest turning point for me, outside of just the mentorship and someone believing in me, marketing was always something. I mean, it was my degree in college, but I hadn't done anything with it until about 2016. And someone took a chance on me, bringing me into Reckitt, actually. I'd never been under the title of actual shopper marketing, but I was doing it on the side for people because I enjoyed it within my organization. And this person took a chance with me. And then from there, my career soared. And I don't mean that just from like a title perspective, but just from a learning perspective and believing in myself I believed in myself, but it was like, who else can take that leap and that leap of faith with me? And he really did. And from there, I would say going into Unilever was my dream job at the time. And I learned a lot. It was the biggest, I thought, I'd hit my peak, right? This huge organization, this magnificent team that I was able to build. And things changed a little bit. And then this opportunity came up to go and kind of start over and not just use all the things and the pieces of information that I'd gathered over the years, both professionally and personally, but then taking all that and teaching others. And the organization now, as it stands, the cool thing about Vestacy and even Reckitt, when they were forming this kind of breakaway at the time called Essential Home, they really picked the cream of the crop. And when I was speaking with them and considering the opportunity, that was really what changed my focus of wanting to try it.
Yeah.
Everyone I've come into contact with has been so helpful. We have a team that I can't wait to go in and see every day. Team of 7. Now, I work with someone that was on my team previously who had been with the company for 26 years.
Wow.
And I was her line manager, but yet she was teaching me the things. So I love it. I feel like I've found my groove. I found a place where I can be me, but continue to shape other people, which is really cool. And really what I want to do ultimately at this point in my career and in my life is how do you help people both professionally and personally from what you've learned.
It's interesting. There's a book called The Second Mountain by a guy named David Brooks, who's like a New York Times writer, and talks about the first part of our lives and are really defined by our accomplishments and our career. Like our titles, here's what we've done. Look what I have been able to accumulate, basically like knowledge. It's where you like learn in obviously elementary school, high school. And if you choose to go to university or secondary, even above that as a master's program, and then putting that into practice vocationally. And then that second part of our life is about how do we then take that and distill it for other people?
Sure.
Them opportunities and create opportunities. And it sounds like not only has that happened kind of in your life, but now that's something you've kind of crossed into that second mountain of being able to say, hey, yes, I'm super grateful for all these people that told me that they see something in me that maybe I don't even see in myself. They've taught me practical skills, hard skills, soft skills, how to deal with conflict, how to navigate a complex organization. But now you're able to really breathe that in, regardless of who those people are. Maybe that's professionally, or maybe that's to your teenage daughter, right? Like,
Oh yeah.
it's we don't live these bifurcated lives. I think it's sometimes we try to put it in that place where it's like, well, here's my home life as a dad or as a mom or as a spouse, and then here's my professional life. But the reality is, at least as I think back to my kind of story, and I think it's similar to yours too, Ashley, is that the things that are outside of my professional life teach me a lot
Yes.
that applies into my professional life, and vice versa. The things that I'm learning at work translates into how I think about my marriage, or as a dad, or as a brother or son, or, you know, whatever the role you might find yourself in. And so it's really cool to hear how you're thinking about that. And that was something that I'd love to, if you've got something kind of around that topic of going, is there a lesson maybe as you think back? I know we're still kind of early into 2026, but like, as you think back to last year, 2025, which had a lot of different dynamics in a lot of different ways, both probably personally, professionally, and like culturally in the world.
Yep.
Is there a lesson that you kind of took away as you entered this year that you were like, wow, and maybe that's something you learned professionally or just in your personal life?
Yeah, I think it's a little bit of both. I would say, you know, and you mentioned kids. I think the most humbling and the most put you in your place moments are when your kids, who are absolutely filterless, say things to you and you're like, oh yeah, okay, well, you kind of have a point there. And you know, even when my kids were little, and even up until last year or the end of 2024, you know, I remember my daughter looking at me at one point and she said, you know, Mom, you rush to get to work, you rush to get home, and you rush to cook dinner, and you rush to get back to it, and all these things. And she goes, and you're so angry. Like, we think sometimes we just think you hate us all. And that was like the biggest knife in my chest, because I pride myself of all my children and the relationships I have with them. But I was like, wow. I mean, it was a moment of clarity. Like, I got to pull up my big girl pants and figure out what I'm doing here, where I can try to find that balance where my kids don't think I hate them. You know, like that was hard. It was
Mm.
hard to swallow. And from that, I think walking away from my previous position and my previous company, it was really hard the last couple of years, you know, just with everything, the environment and the job situations and downsizing that we're all still going through. But I think it was that moment where had to sit and think, like, how am I going to redefine myself? And when this opportunity came, it was just like, okay, the clouds parted, the sun came shining in, and here you go. Like, how can you be a nicer person, but still continue to get the rewards that you reap from the thing that you do for the longest part of your day, 5 days a week? And, you know, so I guess my lesson there would be, and to my younger self, I wish I could say, and to everybody else out there who's starting their careers, is, you know, jobs come and go, titles change, but your family's always there, hopefully, for you. And, you know, like I said, like what my former manager said to me, you're just moving widgets.
Yeah.
You're not, unfortunately, in our position, not curing cancer or saving the planet. So it's like, how do you put that in perspective?
Yeah.
Still do a great job. I'm not saying discard that, and enjoy what you do and be good at what you do. But don't forget about the people who are going to be there with you.
Yeah.
Because they love you unconditionally, and you should give that back to them all the time.
Yeah, that's it's such a great reminder. And I think that I've told this to somebody yesterday who I get the opportunity to mentor, and he was asking, he just became a dad, and he was just, Dad, Brad, you told me it was going to be awesome. So much better than I ever would have imagined. And at the same time, it's so much harder than I ever would have imagined. And I think that often, you know, I think as a parent, it's humbling to hear your kids, because they're just going to tell you the truth. Hey, Dad, I don't feel like you're listening to me, you're on your phone.
Right. Yeah.
Oh, like my natural reaction is kind of defensiveness of like, well, but I'm trying to do my job
Yeah.
and it's 4:45 and I'm technically still working, even though you're in my presence. And but I think as I'm honest with myself, my kids don't care what I do or how well I do.
No.
They love my title, and my title is dad.
Yeah.
And I think that that's the greatest title I'll ever have in my career and in life. And I think it would be similar. You would say the same for yourself. But that's one thing, Ashley, I think that, with these brands and, with these companies, I think the one thing I've come to be, and I would love your kind of perspective on this too,
Sure.
is you've got this new challenge of like
Mhm.
standing up this company, which comes with it lots of opportunities and probably a lot of white space and the ability to go in 100 different directions potentially, of like how you prioritize your time. What are you as an organization focused on? Because at least as I've worked at startups in the past, you're redefining like a pioneer a little bit into where we're going to go and what we do. One of the things that I've struggled with is like discerning, like, how do I prioritize what I need to do? Not just being told what to do. Obviously, if you have a manager and they're like, hey, I need this from you. Okay, that's very clear direction. Thank you.
Yeah. Yeah.
But there's a lot
Noted.
of times when you have to figure out like, okay, what is the best use of my time? Right. Because like you mentioned, you could just go work 100 hours and just grind and grind. But I think most of us who have done that the result was not positive.
Right.
That we are not just defined by how productive in our outcomes that we deliver. How have you learned to prioritize things? I think that's something that it's a question that comes up a lot, I think, in the marketplace, especially with people that are early or mid in their career of like, man,
Yeah.
I'm being asked to do all these things.
Yeah.
And I can't get them all done unless I just work a crazy number of hours. And when I do that, I feel like I'm dropping the ball in my marriage or with my kids or other things. So how have you found, like, I don't think the word's balance, but maybe like harmony with how you've tried to prioritize things?
Yeah. And I like to tell people on my team, this is something I take to heart, is if you stop now at 5 o'clock, or if you stop at midnight or 2 a.m., now, albeit not a line review or something pressing,
Of course.
just on day to day, when you wake up the next morning, are you still going to have work? Yep. So I mean, it never stops. It's like laundry. But it's the things where if you can say, and a lot of times, honestly, I feel like I'm playing whack-a-mole. I mean, there's no clear path. And especially in marketing, you've got brand, you've got sales, you've got all these people that their job is the most important. What they want is the most important thing to you. Well, it's maybe not. So I think it's really just understanding what is the deliverable, what is the time, and what is the impact that is going to be given. Go with those first. And you also just have to be the controller of your own calendar and what you do and what you don't. So if you need to make space so that you can work and you have to block your calendar to do that, fine. Turn off your phones, turn off the devices, everything you need to focus. Because one thing I've learned that is if you try to multitask, you actually fall short everywhere.
Mm-hmm.
So that's where I say whack-a-mole is not the best approach, but sometimes we all play it.
Really?
It's what truly is going to be the biggest impact that I'm going to deliver. Let's go after that first with the shortest timeline. And where do I really want to shine? So if it's not the little bitty thing that's a one-sheeter that's going to be maybe talked about for 5 seconds, it's something where I can put my stamp on it and say, this is what I did. That is where I would prioritize, because you have to be your biggest cheerleader. Nobody's going to do it for you, or very often they don't. So that's how I look at it is, where am I going to stand out? Where am I going to shine? And put your efforts there. Or where's the team going to shine? It's not always about me, right?
Oh, for sure.
And then put the other things on the back burner because it's always going to be there.
That's I think so often, and I was having coffee with someone this morning who's about 30 years into their career. And they said, Brad, there is angst and this tension in the CPG retail space, because you're only as good as your last quarter.
That's right.
And whether you work for a retailer like a Walmart or a brand or a third party agency, it doesn't matter. Typically, you're as good as your last quarter. And so what that creates is this angst and tension that, like, even if I deliver great results, or hey, I got assigned a project that you're launching a new item and you build this masterful strategy you've worked so hard on, you've executed it flawlessly, the launch goes successfully, and then someone says, what's next?
Yep.
And so that can have a tendency to make you feel a little bit like you're on a hamster wheel. And it sounds like what I'm hearing you say is that you have to know yourself well enough to go, how do I work best? And what are the boundaries? That's a word you didn't say, boundaries, but like kind of that I've picked up on, of like, people will operate with me with what I allow.
Correct.
Right. And if I say, and I had a great mentor tell me this once, and he had mentioned this, a guy named Bill Weitzman, who said, Brad, like, if I work and I'm constantly emailing from 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 o'clock to my team, and they're just getting emails perpetually after hours, then they're going to feel like I'm mandating that they do the same.
Correct.
They're observing my behavior. Now, if I say, hey, I'm getting off at 5:30 and I'm dark till 8:30 because I'm going to have dinner with my family, I'm going to be with my kids, I'm going to put them into bed, and I'll be online later if you need me, then I'm also then indirectly giving them permission to do the same.
Yes.
It sounds like that's something that's played a kind of a part in your story. And I guess that's something that I would ask you maybe as a follow-up kind of question is, as you think back to boundaries, are there any like lessons you've kind of learned of like, hey, that didn't really work well, or hey, this is something that has proven to be really helpful for me personally? Well, and that can be maybe in your personal life or in your professional life, but I think it's something a lot of people got questions on, and are trying to figure out.
Yeah. And boundaries is the correct word. I think you're right. It's number one, I think you need to be very upfront and honest with whomever is asking you to deliver something.
Mm-hmm.
If your time is this, say, okay, how do you want me to prioritize this? Because I have these other balls in the air.
Yep.
So setting the stage there and owning it, I think, is one thing. I think also, and I totally lost track because my daughter just came downstairs.
You're good.
I think it's also one thing that I learned, and I totally stole this from somebody, was on the bottom of my email signature. And I think I stole this because it says, I'm working now because this is the time that suits me. I don't expect you to respond during or after your normal business hours. And it sounds a little cheesy, but I took it to heart, because especially when you work with agencies and third-party partners or people who don't know you or don't know how you operate and work all the time, they may take it to, and when I was on agency side, I did. If I got an email at 1:00 in the morning, they expected me to respond within a certain amount of time. I thought that may not have been the case. And so I try to put myself in their position of, if I am their client, I want to give them permission to know I'm not expecting this from them.
Yeah.
And maybe the only time I can work is at midnight because I can't sleep, or maybe that's the only time I have to stop. And that's okay. Just my team knows that. And I tell them for any team I work with on the upfront. But I think for people on the outside looking in, that's why I include it on my email. Whether or not they see it, I don't know. But
I think that's like a really tangible thing, right? Like, it's a simple and you go, yeah, maybe that's cheesy, but you're ultimately, I would say that's kind. Like,
I try to be.
because like, there's a phrase that's often used that like, clear is kind, right? Clarity is kindness. And I think that when you leave things up to assumption, as someone who's worked on a lot of different sides of the table, as the client, as the agency, and now as a third party, vendor, or I don't like the word vendor, partner, whatever you want to call it.
Yes.
Being able to put a simple statement like that immediately removes expectation and says, hey, you're good.
Yeah.
You don't have to feel this unnecessary dancing between like, well, do they need this? Do I need to get up right now and work on this? It's giving people that permission, which I think is, again, sounds like a simple thing at the bottom of an email, but I think it's really practical, right? It's really helpful because anybody that gets a note from you is going to be like, oh, wow, thanks. Yeah, I'm not going to work right now because I'm in the middle of something, but I'll get to this when I need to. And I appreciate her getting that over to me when she could, which I think is a really interesting, like for me, sometimes it's like good to be pie in the sky. But as I'm getting older, I'm like, well, so what does this actually mean for my life right now? It's great to sit and talk about theoretics, but I think there's also those like practical things that really make a difference day to day in the way that we treat people and the way that we get work done. And so thanks for sharing that.
Yeah.
One thing that I was thinking about this morning, and I didn't brief you on this question, but this is just something that I was thinking to myself of, what am I most excited about? I think when I was a kid, I got excited about a lot of things. Like, oh my gosh, like I'm excited about this sleepover this weekend at this person's house when I was a, elementary school kid, or I'm excited about the football game I'm going to play in high school or whatever. But like, I think sometimes as we become adults, we lose that excitement and we just kind of like live. Like, I'm just kind of, I don't want to say surviving, but we just kind of like go day to day. But whether that's in your maybe personal life of things that you're really excited about over the coming months or during this year, or even professionally, or maybe both, like, are there things that you're like, man, when I think about this, maybe it's a trip or it's an event or it's a launch or something related to work or personal that gets you excited? Because I think it's something that you did a great job of saying this at the beginning of like, I just want to be myself.
Yeah.
Like, I say that often, like, I just want to be Brad. Like, I don't want to try to be something I'm not, because that's exhausting. And I think that this excitement, sometimes we go, well, do I have permission as an adult to be excited about things? And so would love to hear anything you're excited about.
Wow. So that's kind of loaded. So
Sorry.
personally, well, we'll start personally because so my last child is at home, as you know. She's a junior in high school. Let me bring her back. And she plays club volleyball. And while it is super taxing to travel and not cheap, I love the time I get to spend with her. The one-on-one time. I'm sad that I did not have that with the other squad of children that I have, but I think with her being the last, it's different and it's exciting. But my time with her has allowed me to stop and reflect on the time I maybe didn't have with the other kids. And so I'm trying to be more intentional with being with them and truly being with them when they're around. Because even though they live here, I don't see them very often.
Yep.
I'm excited for that. I am professionally excited about this role that I've just stepped into in the last hot minute of a week, maybe, and getting back into marketing and really being able to get my hands around media and all other marketing. So call it Omni marketing, call it retail marketing, whatever.
Yeah.
That really excites me because I'm going to get to learn more than just I've been focused on Walmart for 26 plus years. Now I get to learn all the other channels.
Yeah.
Where Walmart will be more direct because of just locality and being here. But I'm really excited about that. And learning my new team. They're younger than I am, which is cool because they're earlier in their career and they're earlier in their professional lives of being, parents and things like that. So that's really interesting for me and gets me excited. It's just, I think I've just reached this point in age and professionalism that it has allowed me to give myself the okay to be excited.
Yeah.
And to stop putting myself to the grind all the time and be able to sit back and enjoy what I've achieved, both with my family and professionally. Because, and I know you say this too, I work to live and I don't live to work.
Yep.
And I think that can help you keep that excitement if you
Totally.
can take that perception. And switched around a little bit. And I couldn't do that when I was younger.
Mm-hmm.
It was how much more money can I make, or what title can I get now? You know, and now I'm like, jobs come and go. I might lose mine tomorrow. You know what? It sucks and it's rough, but what else do I have in my life to make me happy? So
That's a great, there's a phrase that's like, comparison is the thief of joy.
Yeah.
Right. And I think at least in my story early on, and I think it's still a challenge. Like if I'm just being Brad honest here, even today, that you look around at my friends or the people that I know in my career and I see them being very successful, whether that's just in title or in responsibility or in compensation and other things. And you go, wow, like they're way more ahead of where am I behind? Like, should I be doing other things? Like, should I be at this point in my life at a different place? And what that does is it immediately takes out joy in my life.
Yes.
Whereas the inverse of that is gratitude. Like, man, I have a beautiful wife and 3 amazing daughters, and I've got friends, and I've got a great job and a company that has incredible leadership. You know, like then it immediately flips it of like, oh, I'm doing great. I'm
pretty okay and pretty awesome. Yeah.
But on the flip side, there's probably people that will listen to this that you mentioned this, because I've gone through this as well, where I've been laid off.
Yeah.
Not because of anything I've done.
Yep.
Good or bad. It's just with a structural reorganization. And I think that is absolutely a trend currently, whether that's in consumer packaged goods, big tech, agency world. Like there's people that are finding themselves like one day things are great.
Mm-hmm.
And next day things are not. From your experience of being in those situations and then going, hey, there's always the day after. Right? Like I wake up and I'm like, oh my gosh, that happened to me when I was working for Nike. I went in one day, life was good. At 2:30, I got called into a meeting. At 3:00, I was leaving with all of my stuff and things were very not good. I did not have a job. Right. And I remember waking up the next morning going, okay, now what? What am I supposed to do? Am I supposed to be sad? Am I supposed to grieve? Am I supposed to be angry? Do I just need to start passing out my resume? Like, what does that look like? And so would love like any insights you have of going through that. Because I think there's probably most people who listen to this have either been on one side of that equation, right? And there's probably some that are in that kind of storm or in that valley, if you will, right now of going, okay, my world got turned upside down. Yeah. Not because of anything that I've necessarily done, but I've got to go forward.
Yeah.
And any advice you have with that?
Yeah. And, and I've been a part of that more times than 3 to 4 times, whether it's you lose your job completely because of restructure. Maybe you get demoted of sorts because of restructure. And I think the one thing that it does hits the hardest is to your ego first. And I don't think there's one emotion. I think you go through all the gamut of emotions of anger and sadness and worry and ego. But I think the thing that helped me most this last time, and unfortunately we had way too much lead time on something's going to happen, but we don't know what, and we don't know who, but it's going to be this many thousands of people. So get ready, wait a year.
Okay.
And it really stunk. So I would say at that point, because we did have so long, I took a minute to say, okay, if this happens to me and I keep my job, what does that look like? Do I want it? Knowing that all the turmoil will fall. The second part, I stopped and I said, okay, if it happens to me and I lose my job, what's my backup plan? And I think no one can be, if you're not blindsided by it. So maybe taking a little bit of, it could happen to me and I know it because I'm just a number at the end of the day. What would be my backup plan? And I think everybody should probably think about that. And whether it's fine-tuning your resume, which I think you should always do no matter what, because it just keeps it current, at least in your own mind. So you don't have to stop and remember. But during that time, I actually formed an LLC and I kept it. But it was like, I don't know what I'm going to do with it necessarily,
Totally.
but it's something, you know? I know people, I've got some experience. So I think it's, you know, if there were times where I said, even, I don't care if I'm a checker at, you know, insert grocery store, don't care. If maybe it's better if I can just go punch a clock every day for a little while.
Right.
But I think you have to just stop and think about, how would you feel? Kind of set it out a little bit and don't be blindsided and don't think that it can't happen to you, because it can happen to anybody.
Yeah.
And it hurts. It hurts a lot. But I think the biggest thing it hurts is the ego, but then the being afraid, especially if you have a family, or even if you don't, just supporting yourself.
Yeah.
I've watched my daughter go through it as a single mom with a 2-year-old, you know, and what do you do? What do you do to help? And, you know, she's smart enough and she's stubborn enough that she's pulled herself out of it. But it took time.
Totally.
So no one's safe.
Yeah.
I mean, you're just not, sadly.
It's interesting when you say that, because I think that often the folks that I've met with recently that find themselves in this place, that's a common sentiment. And Brad, like, I thought I was crushing it. Like, that was the like, I just, you know, this was doing well, and I got accoladed for this project or this thing that I was working on, and I just don't know how or why this happened. And, you know, the thing that I have tried to provide some encouragement in, and I think it goes back to where we started this conversation, is we need people, you know. And I think oftentimes when things are good, we might not appreciate and or put time and attention to our network.
Yeah.
People, it's like, oh yeah, I'm connected to these people. And it's typically, if I'm honest with myself, throughout 20 years of working, to be able to say, oh, there were moments when I used my network solely for the wrong purposes.
Mm-hmm.
Confession to Brad.
Sure.
But I think as I've gotten older and more mature, as my dad would say, I've learned that I really need people.
Yeah.
And I have a network, and someone reached out today who I know you know well, I will not name them, but who said, Brad, I find myself in this predicament. The exact one we're talking about. I'd love your perspective on what's going on in the market, and can we meet for coffee?
Yeah.
And without hesitation, here's my cell phone. Let's go get a cup of coffee. I'm here to help. My network is free to be shared. The networks aren't to be hoarded, I don't believe. And I think that oftentimes earlier, younger Brad would have said, no, my network is my secret sauce. It's like, if you know all these people, you have power, or you have authority, or an advantage over these other folks that maybe don't have access to these people. And I think what I've learned is, like, in 2026, we're going to need to all lean on our people, regardless of if that's your family, like your blood family, or if that's your work family, or if those are the people and the colleagues who have managed you, who have been your peers and colleagues, or the people that you've had the opportunity to lead. That, like, we all need each other, because it's hard. It's a hard world. I mean, when you just turn on the TV or pull up your phone, we're inundated daily right now with like not great things often. And so to be able to say, man, that's something that, as you were sharing, I was thinking through of, like, man, I'm so grateful when I was in those predicaments that people were willing to have a cup of coffee with me, which for them, they were probably like, yeah, I'm going to have a cup of coffee with Brad. But, like, when you're in a place of hardship, that cup of coffee is like a lifeline, you know?
Sometimes, yeah.
Which is, it's, again, goes back to that gratitude of grateful for people and the influence they've had in our lives, which it sounds like, obviously, as you were sharing earlier, there's been a lot of people that have helped Ashley be who Ashley is today, which is.
Yeah, I think too, though, Brad, one thing I would add to the whole thing is, when you walk away from something that can feel very negative because you've lost your job or whatever may have happened, what I did to really help turn it around was, okay, this really stinks. And I feel really bad about myself right now. And maybe it wasn't because of me. And maybe it wasn't so great toward the end anyway, or maybe it was. But I think taking that time to reflect on what I learned, even if it was hard, reflecting on what I learned and how I take that and package it up for myself to put my best foot forward with whatever the next opportunity is.
Yeah.
No, same thing with COVID. COVID stunk. But I took the moments after, commuting for 19 plus years to sit out on my porch and listen to the boats on the river and have donuts with my kids, and they were doing schoolwork. I was doing work. I was like, you know what? This is a moment I won't get back. And yeah, does it suck that the world shut down? Yeah, but can I make it nice right now? And I think that's where everybody needs to kind of step back and think of what joy can I take from this and glean from this to put my best foot forward for whatever comes next.
Yeah, that's such wisdom. Thank you. Thanks for sharing that. And I would say my sentiment towards that time period is equal. Like, yes, COVID was hard, but I also think it was a recalibration for a lot of people of like what actually matters. And where do I need to, with the removal of a lot of the noise that we all were inundated with, both personally in our lives, to also professionally, to go, oh, wait a second, there is a different way that we never maybe imagined. And again, that was begrudgingly because we were forced to, not necessarily we would have like raised our hand and said, yes, sign me up for that. But I think you bring a great point up, is oftentimes the hardest things we have to walk through in life, whether that's in our personal lives or professional lives, are often the greatest teachers. If we're willing to, be receptive to those lessons. And so today's been incredible. Thank you for your time and more for your influence on my life and the impact of your friendship over the years. And I can tell you, not only am Josh and I excited for what is ahead, we got kind of a front row with our popcorn to watch what Vestacy will become. But maybe in a great year, we can have another conversation to go, where are we at? Like what's happened and what does that look like? So we'll be cheering you on. Thanks again for taking the time, and excited to have you.
Well, thank you so much. I'll always enjoy talking with you guys. So I'll come back anytime you wish.
All right. See ya.
Thank you, friend.